This is the BBC identifying the line for Focus on Africa. This is the BBC identifying the line for Focus on Africa. This is the BBC identifying the line for Focus on Africa. Live from Nairobi, this is Focus on Africa on BBC News. On the program today, panic in Guinea as Guinea-Bissau sustained fire breaks out near the presidential palace amid reports that incumbent President Umaru Sissoco Embalo has been arrested.
The High Military Command for the Restoration of the National Security and Public Order has decided to immediately depose the President of the Republic.
Malian refugees living in Mauritania tell harrowing tales of torture and executions in the hands of Wagner Group soldiers in the country.
Who is going to look after my children? Who is going to look after me? When I hear the name Wagner, I feel traumatized.
Also in the program, is the math adding up? Conflicting reports in Nigeria as Governor of Niger State disputes abduction figures following a school attack.
The school said to me in writing, missing, not abducted. Number of missing students. So they are not certain whether these entire students are with the bandits.
And we tell you all about DR Congo's popular riverboats that kill hundreds of people every year. This is Focus on Africa, live from Nairobi. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Rhoda Odhiambo. Now, in our fast story today, a coup d'etat has taken place in Guinea-Bissau. A group calling itself the High Military Command for the Restoration of National Security and Public Order announced today that they were taking, and I quote, total control of the country while suspending its electoral process. This comes 3 days after the West African nation's legislative and presidential elections were held. The pictures you see on your screen were filed from the capital, Bissau, hours ago, where people ran for cover as shots rang out near the presidential palace and the Electoral Commission offices. Reports say the West African country's president, Umaru Sissoco Embalo, has been detained. Official results from an election last week were expected to be announced on Thursday. Now, President Embalo was seeking a second term in Sunday's election. The 53-year-old former army general won office in 2020 after a disputed result. Following the polls, he and his main challenger, Fernando Diaz, have both claimed victory. Now, the military personnel made the announcement by reading a statement at the army headquarters in Bissau.
The High Military Command for the Restoration of the National Security and Public Order has decided to immediately depose the President of the Republic and, until further orders, to shut down all institutions for the Republic of Guinea-Bissau.
The group also said that they are closing the land and maritime borders as well as the airspace. For more on this, we are now joined by the BBC's Nicolas Negos from Abidjan. Many thanks for joining us on the program, Nicolas. So what else can you tell us about the coup d'etat in Guinea-Bissau?
So what we know so far is that there are a lot of tensions. Tensions are very high right now in Guinea-Bissau after that this group of military officers have announced that they have seized power. People want to stay in their home. I've been able to speak to a few government officials who told me that they were safe, but they wonder They are worried about the situation of the president because they don't know his whereabouts. The president was arrested while he was in office, just after claiming that he won the election with 65% of the vote, which is totally fake according to his main opponent, Fernando Diaz.
And speaking of the president, do we know who else has been arrested?
So we know that the chief of the army was arrested, also the interior minister, and 2 or 3 more government officials, but we are still waiting to know where they are and what will happen to them.
And Nicola, what more do we know about the military factions involved in this coup d'etat, and was it expected?
So it wasn't really expected, you know. President Embalo was first elected president of Guinea-Bissau in 2019. He was trying to seek another term. He had previously said that he would not run for another term, and finally he announced his candidacy, which sparked controversy in the country. We know that there is a large part of the army, also with the opposition, who didn't want him to contest. The former minister, Domingo Pereira, was barred from winning. He was seen as the main contender of President Embalo, and finally he decided to bring his support to Fernando Diaz. But we were thinking that things would go smoothly, as the Electoral Commission had warned all candidates that they shouldn't announce any result and wait for the Electoral Commission to announce official results starting tomorrow on Thursday.
And with the border closures in the country, what's the mood inside Guinea-Bissau, especially with the new measures announced by this military faction that has taken control of the state?
I went last time in Guinea-Bissau in 2022 for an attempted coup against President Embalo, and I've heard many people, and I've called them today, and they are all telling me the same thing. We are used to that. We are used with coups. We are a bit worried, but we are just waiting for things to move on. Life will come back. We are just waiting to see what is going to happen next. So they prefer to stay at home and wait for the next step.
What about the gunshots that rang out earlier on during the day near the presidential palace? Have you heard any reports of people who might be caught up in the crossfire or injured?
According to the journalists or official government members that I spoke to, so far there is no casualty. As I said before, the president was arrested while in office. It seems that everything happened smoothly. We are just waiting to know where he is and what is going to happen next. But so far, there is no reports about casualties.
I'm curious to know if there have been any reactions from the West African regional bloc in regards to this coup, because we know quite a number of countries, especially those in the Sahel, are still under military regime. So have been able to say something in regards to the coup in Guinea-Bissau?
So far, I haven't heard anything. I was trying to share from the ECOWAS or from also the Alliance of Sahel States, because it's neighboring countries, to see if some reaction would have gathered. But so far, I haven't heard anything. We are just waiting maybe to see, as it happens often, neighboring countries, Senegal, to see if President Diomaye Faye would react tonight or tomorrow about what's happening in the neighboring country of Guinea-Bissau.
All right, many thanks for joining us on the program. That's the BBC's Nicolas Negos giving us an update on the coup d'etat in Guinea-Bissau. Now, the BBC has spoken to Malian refugees who have shared shocking testimonies of alleged war crimes committed by Russia's Wagner group in Mali. Eyewitness accounts and harrowing testimonies allege that civilians were brutally tortured and executed in military bases in the central part of the country. Now, Wagner ended its mission in Mali in June this year, but about 80% of the newly formed Africa Corps, now under the control of Russia's Ministry of Defense, are former Wagner soldiers. A warning here, this report contains graphic images.
Bintu seeks refuge and a new beginning at the Imbera refugee camp in eastern Mauritania. She lost her husband last year to alleged Russian mercenary brutality. Now, as a single mother of 5, she faces an uncertain future.
Who is going to look after my children? Who is going to look after me? When I hear the name Wagner, I feel traumatized. I feel afraid. I hate the word Wagner because they have brought sadness to me.
Wagner mercenaries were deployed to Mali in 2021 to support the junta fight jihadists and separatist rebels. But Human Rights Watch has accused them of rights violations because of their brutal tactics. The Mbera camp is home to over 100,000 refugees from Mali, most of them women and children. From torture to enforced disappearances, refugees here have shared harrowing experiences. Some are so traumatized that they are too scared to go back to Mali, citing atrocities committed by Russian mercenaries, the very people brought to protect them. Ahmed was a shopkeeper at Nampala in central Mali. He was allegedly seized by Wagner mercenaries in his shop. They were after the shop owner who had fled to Bamako. They suspected him of collaborating with jihadists. Ahmed was arrested alongside a student and an elderly man.
They took us to a military base. The commander, called Hamza, came out and pointed at me. He turned to a Wagner soldier and signaled him to behead me, pointed at the student and turned to another Wagner mercenary and signaled him to behead the student. They took us to a hangar.
The Malian army base situated near the village of Nampala is also home to Russian mercenaries. Many atrocities, including torture and executions, allegedly took place here.
Inside the hangar, they brought two men and beheaded them in my presence. One was holding the man, and the other, called Andre, pinned his head to the ground with his knee and brought out a knife and beheaded him. They brought the body closer to me to smell the fresh blood and said, if you do not tell us the whereabouts of the shop owner, you will suffer a similar fate.
Hussein was also one of their victims. He and two others were arrested by Wagner mercenaries and taken to this military base in Lira, in central Mali. He tells me they were locked in a metal shipping container with no ventilation.
They dragged us into an office and beat us until we fainted. When I woke up, my hands were tied to my friend's hands. They brought a motorbike close to my face, revved the engine and blew exhaust in my nose to wake me up fully. They did the same to my friend, but he didn't respond. That's when they realized he was dead.
Thousands of Malian refugees continue to cross the border into neighboring Mauritania. Malian army and Russian mercenary bases are just a few kilometers across the border, and as the violence escalates, thousands are fleeing for their lives. The UNHCR says it has recorded atrocities committed by various armed groups in Mali, including the Wagner group, and they are providing the refugees with psychological and legal assistance as many want justice.
Many of them come with that horrific violence and that they have endured either at the checkpoints, on the road, at their homes. Some of them are directly targeted. Some of them simply in a place where the villages and other places where the fighting is very close.
Wagner ended its mission in Mali in June this year, but most of the soldiers are still part of the African Corps, now under Russia's Ministry of Defense. The BBC has approached Russia's and Mali's defense ministries for comment, but they have not yet responded. As the security crisis in Mali deepens, victims like Bintu, Ahmed, and Hussein hold on to a fragile hope that one day justice will prevail and their suffering wouldn't be in vain. Thomas Nadi, BBC News, Mbera in eastern Mauritania.
And to get a detailed report on the atrocities committed by Russian mercenaries in Mali, you can find the story on the BBC website or just search BBC's FocusOnAfrica.com. You're watching Focus on Africa on BBC News, and here's what's still to come on the program. DR Congo's riverboats, lifelines for many, yet deadly for hundreds each year. We'll tell you why after the break. Welcome back to Focus on Africa. Let's head to Nigeria now, where it remains unclear how many students were abducted from a Catholic school in Niger State last week. In an exclusive interview, Governor Umar Bago told the BBC that only 14 parents have so far reported their children missing, although that number could rise as some families live far away. Now, earlier reports suggested that more than 300 students and teachers were kidnapped in Niger State alone, while families await for clarity in a crisis that shows no sign of ending. The Christian Association of Nigeria says 50 students escaped, but the government has disputed that figure, alleging that they only rescued 11 students. The governor has criticized the school for poor record keeping and reopening without authorization despite security warnings. Meanwhile, 24 girls kidnapped from a boarding school in Kebbi State on November 17th have been released after more than a week in captivity. The BBC's Madina Maishanu has been speaking with the governor of Niger State and filed the following update.
It's not about Christianity. It's beyond that. A school where people, the church has been there for a lot of people. In that area, particularly, the church has served as an orphanage, the church has served as a school, the church has served as a home to a lot of people who are homeless. So it's beyond just Christianity. A lot of people who even attend the school, who are even students in that school or pupils, are probably not just Christians. It's a mixture. A lot of devil advocacy would say people are trying to take advantage of that situation, to try to blackmail the country. And this is what I feel. Like this is like an attempt to blackmail or to bring crisis within, this country, trying to portray that Christians are maligned or are being treated otherwise. But it's not so.
Governor, who is trying to blackmail the government?
The bad people. It's a sabotage, an attempt to sabotage the government. This is what we're talking about. If you listen carefully, the ISWAP was celebrating that we have been able to force government to close schools. It's a blackmail. But yet, you cannot call their bluff. You need to be very careful, because if you call their bluff and anything happens, it's going to be a shame. Therefore, once bitten, twice shy. But I can tell you, the bad people are blackmailing the system, and they are trying to bring down the system, but they cannot achieve that.
You have said that the numbers are exaggerated. How did you reach this conclusion?
There was an attack and there was scare. A lot of children went into the forest. The school said to me in writing, missing, not abducted. Number of missing students. So they are not certain whether these entire students are with the bandits, or are they in the bush. We have opened a register there and we are counting.
The community that is in that area, they feel left out, they feel abandoned. What assurances are you giving to the parents that you are actively working to rescue their children?
So my going there is going to happen. And the assurance we are giving them is that we have started rescuing some of their children. Some of them have been reunited.
Are you categorically saying that students have been rescued?
Yes. In a farm settlement, we rescued 11 people. The joint operation of the military and everybody rescued it. So outside the last 51 that were declared, additional 11 have been confirmed rescued, and the operation is still going on.
I was in Papiri, and the security that I saw there was very, very minimal.
Security is not what you see. We can't discuss security on your screen. We are here to rescue lives.
When do you think the schools will be reopened, and what conditions will be met or should be met before you can open the schools in Niger?
It's not going to be very soon that we're going to open boarding schools in Papiri. It won't open now until we're sure the lives of people or students are secured.
Still in Nigeria, the United Nations says that growing instability across the northern region is driving hunger levels never seen before. Emmanuel Bigenamana is the head of area office on the World Food Programme and said that food insecurity has been worsened by intensified insurgency attacks.
Here in northeast Nigeria, we are witnessing a deterioration of hunger and malnutrition. Insurgent attacks have intensified and communities are carrying the weight of this. Hunger is now reaching levels we have not seen in years. If families cannot eat and fear continues to grow, desperation will take hold. Armed groups can use that desperation to tighten their grip, putting the wider region even at greater risk.
The cemetery in Mbandaka, a river port city in the northwestern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, is a final resting place for many victims of the country's repeated riverboat accidents. With less than 5% of the nation's vast roads tarmacked, many people living there have no choice but to use poorly maintained river buses to either get to work, school, or the market. Day and night, the so-called whale boats sail the mighty Congo River, the second longest in Africa and the deepest in the world, overloaded with both people and cargo. Let's get more on that with from the BBC's Elaine Chong.
The cemetery in Mbandaka, a riverport city in northwestern Democratic Republic of Congo, is the final resting place of many victims of the country's riverboat accidents. But despite the risks, many feel they have no option but to get on a boat to travel in the vast landlocked DRC.
We take the risk of travelling in such conditions because there are no roads to drive here to Mbandaka. The only route we have is by water, this river you see here. What's more, on this river route there is a shortage of safe boats, so we take these dilapidated whaling boats because we have no other choice.
It rains almost all year round in Mbandaka, in the dense rainforest of the Congo Basin of Central Africa. Journeying by land means driving across mostly dirt roads, and the wet climate means they're often impassable. To get to school, market, or work in the fields, locals resort to poorly maintained river buses, which are often overloaded with both people and cargo.
We overload passengers and cargo, yes, and that's normal, because when I spend $15,000 or $30,000 to buy a whaling boat and put it on the river, it's to make a profit. What's more, when we are at the dock like this, lots of environmental officials come to collect taxes, the sailors ask for inspection reports, and we have to pay for lots of other services. Otherwise, they block the whaling boat from leaving until we pay up to $20.
In recent months, the DRC government has repeatedly reminded boat owners that it is forbidden for river vessels to travel at night, overloaded and without life jackets.
It's not easy at all because if we don't maintain the engines, we'll never reach our destination. We have to maintain the engines day and night, even while sailing, and we don't sleep because otherwise the passengers won't reach their destinations. Their lives are in our hands because this is the only means of transportation we have here.
Since July 2024, at least 148 people have died in boat accidents on the Congo River, and several dozen are still missing, according to an AFP count.
There was no storm, there were no waves, but there was excessive cargo, and because it was nighttime, we nearly drowned. I said, "Oh no, but I can't swim, what am I going to do?" It really was God's grace that I survived, but my two brothers were gone. And for me, it really hurts too much. I'm so traumatized. Even now, I don't know how to get back on my feet.
Jean-Florent Munzanza is buried in Mbandaka Cemetery. He drowned in a boat sinking on the Congo last year.
He'd gone on a service mission, and on the way back their boat capsized. My son was among the dead, and since he died, the government's done nothing. They don't care. In other countries, there would have been investigations and a trial to hold those responsible accountable for their actions. But here, nothing.
Elaine Chong, BBC News.
Now, it's all right. It's not often that you see me outside the studio, but before we wrap up today's program, I'd like to make a little announcement. Now, over the last 2 years, the Focus on Africa TV news program has been produced by teams both in Nairobi and London, but as part of the BBC's vision of programming, bringing programs closer to its audiences like you, this particular program was produced by producers here in Nairobi, supported by our colleagues in Lagos, Nigeria. And that is what will happen moving forward. Now, here I'm in the Nairobi Gallery, and moving forward, the Focus on Africa TV news program will be handled editorially by the team on my right, that's Wahiga Mora, and the technical team on my left. And now we'd like to sincerely thank the team in London who have been producing this show for the last 13 years, and now they are signing off. Now, the Focus on Africa TV news program is one of the BBC's BBC's international African shows coming from the continent and offering what will only get better with more nuanced coverage, that stories that matter to you. Well, that's all the time we had for you on today's program. Feel free to get in touch with me and some of the team on social media. I'm on X at Odhiambo Rhoda, and don't forget to tag at BBC Africa. You can also listen to the biggest stories on the African continent. Just search Focus on Africa from wherever you get your podcast from. In regards to the story about the coup d'etat in Guinea-Bissau, you can read up on that story on the BBC website. Just search bbc.com/Africa. That's it from me and the rest of the team here in Nairobi. Many thanks for joining us. Tomorrow.